this video, I'm going to combine a few different things. So these figures, I think these are Forge World Famir figures. I think that's what they're called. These were already partially painted using oil paints. So we've got things like the MIG Ammo oil brushers. Get that for you right there. And some of my standard oil paints here, Winsor Newton. They were painted along with a bunch of other stuff that I was working on. That's something I talk about a lot. The benefit of oils is you can slap paint on a bunch of figures all at the same time. And these I put paint on them. I never had a chance to finish them off. And I know people ask, well, can you paint acrylics over oils? It's something I do all the time, but I haven't done it on camera. And I thought, well, here's a good time to do something like that. But let's add something a little extra to it, and let's change course here, and we'll use metal medium for the armor. And you can see the reference pictures in the corners there. It's not quite the same as these figures. I guess that's the leader figure, whatever. We don't have that one. So we're going to change from what started out originally as non-metallic to metallic using the metal medium. And like we've done recently, these are the paints by Slow Fuse Gaming and Creature Caster. I think they're called Pro Acryl whatever names. Really doesn't mean anything to me. There's actually one color I haven't even tried yet. Maybe we'll try this green. It's just sort of a true green. We've got bluish green and jade, and obviously the camel green here. So we'll put these out on the palette. We've got the usual brushes in hand. So the number 8 rounds, and as usual, the newer brush. It's going to have a nice pristine tip on that, but when they get worn down a little bit, now you get something like this. The filbert brush. So look at that chisel edge. Just as much control as the pristine tip, but I get the benefit of now basically a custom-made filbert brush that holds a lot more paint than, say, a standard filbert brush, because the bristles are longer and it's less likely to fray and spread like that just by the shape of the brush. If we need these, we've got the usual makeup sponges. Those are at hand. And I will try and dig out the brushes here, see if I can find those for you so you can see what they look like in the package. So again, $5, set at 12. You can get them in the stores, Hobby Lobby, or from the Hobby Lobby website. That's where I get mine these days. It's just easier. So we've talked over our materials. We got 3 of these here that we're going to work on. And again, the idea is switch these. I'm going to switch to metallics here. We'll go with a grayish green skin tone. We'll try and push the Creature Caster / Slow Fuse paints a little bit further. Maybe put some purples in the shadow areas here. So we'll try a few different fun things, and we'll see how that works. So before I get into those metals, there's a few edges that I want to clear up, throw in a few glazes here. Now this is, usually I'm using my liner paints or whatever, but we're trying out the Slow Fuse paints here. And one of the things I want to do is maybe shift the outfit here more towards jade, because, well, I saw it in the picture and thought, well, let's try some jade. So we're making a little change here, making that darker. I thought it might also make the grayish skin tone maybe stand out that much more. And these are those course corrections that I talk about all the time. This is a little more significant of a change than we've tried on past videos. Haven't really gone from non-metallic to metallic, but Why not? See, we're gonna again take that dark in here, and it really does change that around a bit. We've got this bit of cloth right here. Now, the one thing I did do to create a little bit of seal between the oil paint and the acrylic is hit it with the same spray tester's dull coat that I normally would on any figure. I could have used, say, Brush On, Army Paint, or Annie Shine. That would have worked too. But you can see, paint flows right over the oil paint just fine. No problems. I mean, I've heard all kinds of just, it won't stick, it'll eat through this, it'll do that, do all these horrible things. It'll eat through primer. It's just the weirdest things that I've heard, and absolutely none of them are true because, well, I've done it many, many times with no problems whatsoever with different paints, different figures, pewter, resin, whatever. I'm doing the same thing here. And you can see I'm glazing over oil paint that's dried with no problem. And it's not like I sprayed this with 7 layers of sealer. I just gave it my usual kind of dusting. Now this is kind of on the darker side here, so we're not really gonna get the benefit of seeing everything there, but hey, you know it's there. Let's see, I think I've got all the lights cranked up all the way. Yep, all the lights are on. Usually I have to turn them off. That's the side benefit of having a figure that's already pretty well established color-wise and value-wise. So let's get a little more of just the jade in there. Yeah, I like that better. It's just a little bit more rich. I hadn't seen any pictures of him at all, so this is the first time I've actually known what the heck they were supposed to look like, as I do that in air quotes. And that's that. Also, too, I see that these are supposed to be stone, so we'll make that change also, because, well, why not? Alright, and we'll hit the last one here. Boy, that really does change things around, so that's a nice change. Glad we did that. And as you can see, just no problem to cover that. You can also see a little bit more of a contrast now, not just between the skin and the tunic, clothes, rags, whatever you want to call them. I'm just mixing a little brown in here now. But now those, potentially the metals are going to have a little more contrast also. That's a good thing. And again, just to reaching into that jade. We can go back into this and lighten things up, no problem later on. It's just part of that alteration. I think the other reason I wanted to do this, among the many reasons, is I keep hearing people talking about stripping miniatures, and they'll strip a miniature 15 times. It's amazing there's any miniature left to strip. Well, I'm going to be making significant changes to these, and I didn't strip anything. I used what I had as an underpainting. How many times have you wanted to, boy, I wish I could just get a little more green undertone, or I hear about that a lot. Well, why not use what's already underneath it as an undertone? It's already there. So that's that. Let's see what we're going to do over here. So I'm going to change that. I've got a blue over here. I'm going to try this crazy bluish purple here. Faded Ultramarine. I'm going to throw that out there, see what that does. Hopefully it ends up on the palette camera. I have to get used to these. They're this is something that we went over ad nauseum, how to get jars that don't clog. Well, it's sort of like an Elmer's glue thing, and I've got to remember that. I just went to press on it. Yeah, so we didn't want that to be gold. I'm just gonna change that to something more of a bluish, purplish gray. So there's another change right there. We got 3 of these. Let's make sure we do it on each one. Change that to stone. It did seem a little unusual the way that was cut, that it would be metal. So there's 2, last one. Where are you going? There we are. There's number 3. Because I can even see what looks like cracks in stone. So another change made right there. While we have this, let's see what we can do as far as a grayish color for the skin tone. That's a little bit purple and brown. And so you can see we're switching up our skin tones a tiny bit. I'm going to throw a little bit of this yellow ochre in there. That's better. Just needed a touch of that. Maybe we'll do some spots here on the heads. Won't necessarily do this skin tone everywhere. Maybe I just leave the tail, whatever that is. Maybe we'll leave that a little darker. But we do need to get something going on the hand there. And this seems light, what I'm doing here. Sorry if that's off camera. But when you think of the overall context of this, I'm going to even add a little tiny touch of red in here. See, that matches that one. There, gives a little bit of a highlight. Throw a touch of green back in there. And it's been quite a long time since I last saw these. So I haven't had a chance to memorize these or come up with any kind of a brilliant plan. This is basically just on the spot, right in front of your eyes. No pre-planning, nothing like that. Just, oh, okay, that's a sort of a grayish green I got there. Well, let's work with that. And I think we got one more here. This one's got a little touch more brown in it. So I clearly must have tried to make some different skin tones on each one. Speaking of skin tone, there you go. On him. Now let's lighten it up a touch. And I think what we're going to introduce is, I think this is a light gray or something here. It's bright warm gray. It's got a little greenish tint to it. Let's throw that out there. And I think it'll still be on the palette. Once we're done, yep, it's right over here by the yellow. So I'll throw some of that in there. Oh, and let's just get some lights in here. Go back to some of that brown. Touch of green, so you can see I'm just kind of wet blending and moving things around. Maybe take some away, then drop the figure. And let's get a few more lights down here. Because I'll be glazing back over the top of this. And I know people, they just kind of freak out when they see this. It's too messy for them. Well, if you check out, if you're a patron and you have access to the 2D art video that I did, you'll see that you think this is messy. And then I was just aimlessly slopping paint in spots. You can check out that when I'm doing some 2D art. That'll really show you what working loosely looks like. Oh, I need a little change of color here, so I'll make that leather strap. We'll do the same thing here. Get a little red here on the handle of this. Let's turn that into a touch of a glaze there. Darken that down. Get that out of the way. Same thing here. I just threw some paint there, and now I'm going to throw some water in there so they just sink down. So we're going to grab our black here, a touch of the jade, maybe a little hint of purple in there. Making a glaze, checking it twice. And we'll do something naughty or nice to the stone here. Let's grab ourselves one of our sponges and pull some of that away. And we'll go to the next one here. Do the same sort of thing. A little bit of a darker glaze there. Give it a little touch of the purple. Take some away. One last little glaze there to do. And we've made our changes there. Take away some of the excess. You can see how much of that's being taken away. What else are we going to do here? So I see that's also more of a part of the tunic. And bang, there we go. So I had no idea what the heck these things were. And that's, I could even do a little bit of lightening of the tunic. We see that's too much. We can bring it down just a hair. I don't want to lose all of that warm green. So maybe we'll only do just the jade in a few areas and leave the rest to that warmer green. So the jade's a neat color. Might want to do a skin tone in that at some point. That could be fun. I don't want to lighten it too much because remember I wanted that contrast with my metals. I also thought this could be interesting because one thing about these paints, meaning the Creature Caster Slow Fuse Gaming paints, they dry really, really matte, which means kind of from a texture finish standpoint could get some interesting contrast just in that way. So we're getting a little more of our jade working in there. Changing these around. I'm starting to get a little more familiar with the figures here. So these figures I had to kind of dust them off a little bit, and they were from the early days of where I tried oils on figures that weren't historicals. I'd used them a bunch, but they were really more focused on historical figures, and well, that's just a little bit different than these. You're working in typically a far less, much more muted range, limited range. So let's go back around here. Okay, I think that's reasonably in focus for you. So I think we've got a pretty thorough change underway here, which means before I get too wrapped up in this, because I don't want to do that, I don't want to just be focused on all of this, changing this to this teal color, jade, whatever, and then not get to my metals. So we'll stop here with this layer, and then we'll throw out some. Oh, we already got the metals out there. We get some of that on the brush. Who knows? Maybe we do a what is that? A verdigris effect. That could look interesting given what we've done here. Now, the fun thing about the metal medium. Let's bring some of it over here. Let's do this. And look what we can do. We can turn any color into a metallic. So that red is now metallic. This brown is now, see, that's a brownish red metallic color. You can take this yellow here. That is now metallic color. And the more the metal medium I put in there, now as you get a little more metallic, but it also gets a little bit lighter. Because that's the thing about metallics, is how the heck do you shade these things? It's really tough because, let's make this smaller again. It's really difficult to shade those because, well, as soon as you put a glaze over the top of them, it dulls down your metallic effect. So we've got our little bit of a gold here. Oh, look at that. Pretty well matches what's already there. That's nice. Like so. In a little bit here, I'll show you an interesting, side benefit of having the any color metallic paint. What if we were to do metallic glazes? That could be fun. Because I haven't really tried that before, so we could try that here. Why not? So let's get a little more of that in there. Maybe I see that I still want the rest of that to be stone. I'll just make those. Maybe they'll be glowing later. Who knows? But I'll just do that for right now. And we'll do this on our other Famir. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. It could be different. I don't know. And this is not a dry brush. There's plenty of paint on there. Absolutely plenty of paint. I don't know what any of the symbols on this are, so we'll definitely put some gold or some metal here. Let's see how that shows up now, because we threw some darks there. Let's hit this one. So there you go. Some metal there. Some metal there, and I think we just got one left here to do. And you can see this is a reasonably dark metal color. When you start seeing some of the highlights, you'll realize, yeah, that was pretty dark, what we just added there. I'll hit this. That may end up being, yeah, that's going to end up probably being leather, so I won't mess with that anymore. I'll hit this. And I'll just touch that. Just kind of mark that as maybe being that goldish color. You can start to see some of the reddish brown working its way in there. So now we have a little hint of metallics in places. Now let's, for the heck of it, see if we can make ourselves some kind of a metallic glaze. So I'm mixing metallic here, a little black. And it might not quite look metallic on the palette, but it is. Here, let's grab a little of that red in there. Let's do some shading here. And indeed, oh yeah, as I put that on there, that's most definitely metallic. So that's an experiment that I hadn't tried before, and yeah, pretty interesting to be able to do glazed shadows, but in metallic paint. So another fun experiment happens. Here, let's go here. So that's going to be an interesting little new weapon in the arsenal, as they say. And a little more. Yeah. Now the Patreon page has several videos like this where I experiment with new things. I'll even take units and paint one in acrylics, then paint the same unit in oils. What's the other experiment? Oh yeah, I've experimented a couple times with oil metallic colors, because yes, those do exist. I don't think they really did before, not until Mig Ammo made some. There's metallic oils in tubes, but those aren't terribly useful, unfortunately. So here's a nice, interesting, deep reddish, dark reddish metallic glaze that we're going to throw on here. And something I have not tried before, and really enjoying it. Throw me some. I'll thin this down even more. So the metal medium plays nice with the creature caster paints. That was another thing, because you never know. I didn't think there would be an issue, but you don't always know. All right. We got one more here. Let's see the difference between the two. So yeah. As soon as I hit this one with that glaze, we're going to see some interesting changes. Let's get that right in there. Let's water it down a touch. And we'll make sure we keep that down into the shadow. See, I can even blend that away. So instead of a whole bunch of layers of metallics, which not really the most fun thing in the world. I just keep thinking of some of the advertising campaigns that say, what if you could do this? Well, I think we just did our own little what if right here. So let's shade this. So I'm going to take the side of the brush. We're just going to draw in our newly created metallic glaze. That is really fun. I didn't even occur to me. This was not part of the plan whatsoever. It only just occurred to me as I was messing around with this. Well, we're doing this. Let's see what happens. And it was definitely well worth it. These are the type of things that I try to do for the Patreon page to make sure that I'm always experimenting, trying something new. Because if you just see me doing the same stuff over and over again that you know is successful, that works all the time, it's how does that encourage you to experiment on your own? Not really. So here I'm changing that to throw a little bit of red down in there. And now I'm going to try and get my sponge in here to take some away. I do have other types of sponges too. Got about 4 or 5 different types of makeup sponges, which is how I somehow became the Prince of Maybelline. There we go. Doesn't seem to separate or anything crazy. Here, let's go back to a little more of a dark. Make sure I get enough of that metal medium in there to keep my metal color going. So back to some red here. Again, all the while making sure that I keep some of that metal medium in there. See, I need to get some more in here. Do some glaze over the top of that. Take the sponge. It's not like taking the black, it's taking a sponge. So the other, I guess, the other benefit of this is, so I'm going to do this on my Song of Ice and Fire figures because I've got the Starks and such to do that I want to, and I think some of the Night's Watch I might do metallics on there also. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry, right? Our newly minted, very interesting metallic glaze. That's pretty fun. So we're going to let that dry. And I'm just going to ink in, yeah, let's get a little more of the metal medium into this. Try and reinforce some of those darks in there. So getting a lot of nice color transitions. I think that's another thing that ends up missing with metallics. You don't see a whole lot of color transition. You tend to see the same mithril silver highlights, and you don't really see a lot of green in the metals or purples or anything interesting. Tends to look kind of dead. But that is definitely not dead. Alright. So we'll be back. We'll just work on the metals. We're also going to start to add maybe some purple in the recesses of the skin tones here. So we'll be back with that. So just as I thought, I can see a big difference between the matte colors here. Well, we'll just get some water on that. The matte colors here versus the metallic colors here. So there is an interesting contrast between the two. So what I'm going to do is work on these weapons, whatever they are. Let's see if they're stone. So let's go in here and I'll just add some lighter colors to this. Again, it could be metal, but I'm going to go more with stone. So you can see I'm just trying to get some these, and these are not highlights either. These are really more mid-tones. Yeah, I suppose these could even be done as marble, whatever, but see all these chips that I see here, I'm going to say those are stone, but on this top surface, let's get a little lighter here. And I can still go back in and do glazes on this to darken it down if I feel it's too light. But that's always best to make that kind of a choice after you've seen the lights in other spots so you can get a little more context. So I'll go with that right there. Now let's hit the next one here. So again, that's that interesting sort of ultramarine purple type color. Here, let's get some here. Now again, this, I'm seeing a rivet here, so it could be metal, but then I see a crack right here, which to me, I don't know, it just says that it's some type of a stone, marble, whatever. And I'll probably do a little more, but paint that in a little bit more later on. But to me, they're just sort of reading as stone, and that's what I'm going to go with. At first I thought I was having such a hard time finding these. It took a while to find them in the Forge World web store because, well, the search did not yield any of this. I had to dig through all of the changed names because, again, I don't, not having played Sigmar myself, I didn't know what some of the new designations were, who got put into what faction, order, destruction, chaos, that sort of thing. All I know is that my armies all got wiped out right away when the change happened. That that I know. I mean, maybe a lot of things I don't know, but that particular change, I was well aware of that. That's the Tomb Kings, my Tomb Kings, never to be seen again. So enough of a rant there. Let's get a little lighter on this one. And you probably will see me later on going back in, toning things down. But for now, I just wanted to get a few lighter tones in there. Now we're talking about purple on the skin. One thing this line doesn't have, it doesn't have a huge range of purple colors. It's okay because I want this to be a little more muted anyway. So what you're going to see me do is, especially around the eye, let's turn that into even more of a glaze. Around the mouth there. Because one thing that also is kind of neat together is the purples and greens. And together they basically make gray. So we can wipe some of that away. Let's do a little bit of that here. In some places maybe a little darker. Not absolutely everywhere. Not everywhere. Maybe a touch here on the hand, touch on the legs. While we're here, I'm going to, these aren't going to be black. I just want to make sure I know that they are supposed to be a little bit darker here. I think on some of those I had already done these, but this one obviously not. And we'll just throw an even darker glaze over some of this stuff. Over these things on his arm here, just kind of darken those down. tail here, I'll do the same thing. Just darken that down. Don't be afraid to glaze. Don't be afraid to wipe it away either. There we have it. And let's touch of purple in that. So let's compare that to... There we go. Let's try the same thing here. This time maybe even making that a little bit more of a darker muted purple. So this one, the mouth is closed. Again, turning that into a glaze so that it'll sink down into the crevices. And who knows, may end up becoming almost a little bit indistinguishable. I see the weapon also needs some glazes here. There just wasn't a lot going on. So in some of these things I'm playing catch up. Here's another example. Let's get a little red into this. Another one of these straps that just needs to be a different color. There's a few straps in here you can't actually see them, so there's some stuff I'm not going to bother with because it's just too hard for the camera to see, but it makes an interesting contrast to our jade / teal color. So we're going to hit some of those nails right there. And we've got one more here. Let's get that purple, a little bit of that black. So there's going to, I think the plan was something like 6 colors per quarter. That was a sort of a goal. And metal medium is something they said they were going to make because they know how much I like it now that I have it. Well, I've had it actually for a really long time, but I never really realized what the heck it could do. And now that I know what it can do, it's just really, really powerful. Opens up so many opportunities. So here, doing the same thing on this tail, just going to darken that down on these nails here. So apparently I hadn't painted them on any of these, or glazed them darker or anything like that. So we'll just do that now, not spending too much time on them, because again, only so much time here on the video. And I'm going to just make that dark cloth because that doesn't need to be gold. A few shadows in here too, like that. And just again hit places that seem to need to be darker. Right. So we've done the little bit of work on the purple. While that dries, let's go back to some gold. Let's see what my metal medium, that still looks pretty good there. Now let's start to make that a little more interesting. So this will be a little bit lighter color. See, I threw in some orange there. And that really should start to stand out a bit. And sure enough, it does. But like I said, it's metallics. We took regular paint colors and we've just turned those into a metallic. And what's nice is I can do what is essentially a, oh gosh, true metallic metals, TMM. I hear so many different expressions of it. I lose track sometimes. Let's get a little more of this metal medium out here. Let's throw some right there. Let's get some in this red over here. And bring my orange down. Right in there. Yeah, that is a nifty kind of a coppery color. Look at that. So here we're going to switch it around here. But I still have my darks underneath, but those darks don't lose, they don't lose the shininess. And I've seen it happen. Yeah, I haven't had many chances to use metallics at all because most everyone requests us to paint things in non-metallic metal. This is sort of an interesting journey between the two worlds because what I'm doing here really is closer to what I would do with my non-metallic stuff. Since I've already got some of that reddish tone here, let's build off of that. Yeah, that's working. Let's just keep building. Very nifty. Here, let's get some on this thing on the elbow here. Because all that dark underneath, again, is a metallic dark. And now we can go over, that's a greenish metallic dark. And now we're painting over the top of that with this orangey red. Here, let's even pop that a little more. Just to see what happens. Yeah, see even a little more. It just kind of bursts forward a little bit there. Don't necessarily want to have that absolutely everywhere. Because there's that whole too much of a good thing. But again, that reddish orange feel, that's going to get us some separation from that teal green that we've been doing. Yeah, I definitely will be doing more of this, especially when like I said, when it comes to the Song of Ice and Fire stuff and I get to the Stark units. Now, if you want to see more traditional, non-metallic, I've got plenty of those on the Patreon page. I have an entire 12-plus hour series on the Lannister unit where I did the Sky Earth non-metallic. But I've got more Lannisters, and I definitely want to try, as I add metal medium to some yellow here, I'll certainly try to do basically a metallic version of Sky Earth and see what happens. Again, if you never experiment, then you never know. So this is even more of the metal medium here. I'm just trying to make a light, yeah, and see how that will, it will lighten that up there. So I'm getting a lot of nice lights and darks, but it seems like, even though the Creature Caster, Slow Fuse gaming paints are very matte, it doesn't kill the metallic effect. I wasn't sure. You know, it could do that. It might not. Again, won't know until we actually use it. So we're getting some fun metals here. I don't want to get too bogged down in individual guys here. Let's go back to that orange. And let's just start to work that into the metals on this guy. You can see it happens pretty fast. Now, I don't want to forget about my reddish color over here. See, I've got some nice purples down in the shadows, lots of fun things. Don't want to lose that. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Get some of that on these pieces down here. And back to that. Let's add a little yellow to the metal medium again. Start to bring up a few more of these lights. And I can always glaze over the top of this if I want, say, more of a corroded effect. I can do that too. Now let's not do all. Yeah, for the heck of it, I'm going to humor myself and I'm going to mix a little bit of the metallic with the jade here. We got it. There we go. Ah, that's fun. Yeah. That's kind of neat. So it's one more effect that I can add to this. Yeah, see a little touch of green in there. It's almost like it's reflecting a little bit of the green outfit there, so now people will really have trouble going, oh, is that metallics? Is that non-metallic? What would you do there? So I think that's sort of the philosophy behind the true metallic thing. Again, I don't care about rival camps or anything like that. That's none of that matters to me. I know there are people that really, really, really have to. It's got to be one or the other. Can't mix the two. See, that's pretty fun. Just that little touch. See, you got the green, and then the red. Yeah, let's get a touch of green into there. So we're getting some fun metals here. Let's do some of this. Almost, I don't know, gives it almost an air of there's some sort of magical thing going on, whatever, with the armor, as opposed to just, yeah, kind of standard corrosion coloration. You know, is it a verdigris effect, or is it not? Or is it just reflecting some of the colors around it? A little touch of green there. Remember we had that green glaze there. Sorry again if this is either out of focus or whatever. I'm just trying to make it so that I can see it. So we're going to change this up again. So this is going to be some of that brown. Also mixed with the metal medium to make things a little darker in there. Same thing there. Over here. All right. Now, I don't want to do too much more on this without going back to our jade color here. I'm going to use a little touch of that. That'll also warm it up a little bit. Remember we were talking about context, and we want to see before that armor gets too light, we want to see, well, what's it next to? It's going to be next to that type of a jade. Or teal, or emerald green, or again, I've heard 1,000 different names for the same colors. Every company tends to give them a different name. The goal behind these paints was to give them a name that was very basic. Not so much with the clever names, which, well, they can be pretty darn hard to remember. And let's just stop there. I don't want to go too far with that, because I may want to warm that up or do something different in some places. So see, I'm going to need some of the, maybe some of that reddish leather strap that's tying that piece of armor together. So the folds on these are really, really heavy and sharp. I can tell you that. Definitely, they are hefty. They are pronounced. No doubt about that. And we'll pop a few little lighter colors there. On to this last one here. Continue with that. Keep on going here. Like so. A little touch of green over here. Along here too. And we'll just shoot that on there too. And let's continue to lighten this up. And I've added, now you can see a little more of that yellow ochre to it, which does a few things. It warms it up. It also gives it a little bit of intensity. Yeah, that's pretty nifty. But I will, like here, I'm not going to do that there, because maybe that's going to be more of that olive / camo green. So I think the picture on the lower left, that's from Forge World there, that is their official scheme, so I was trying to match that. Well, I guess just the teal part of it, and maybe even some of the metals too. Because a lot of folks, they don't necessarily, it's hard for them to come up with their own scheme, and sometimes they just want to know, well, how could I match just what I see? That's all I want to do, is be able to match what I saw. Now you can start to see some of the reds in the metals start to play off what we've added here with the teal colors. just keep going here. Just finding my way through, like, okay, here's folds over here, there's folds over here. Wait a minute, that's actually a piece of leather. That's a piece of cloth. That's a piece of armor. So we're gonna work our way into this one. Because if I had used, let's say that purplish blue, I would have gotten an entirely different type of teal. It would have sort of just looked like teal. But it would have, this is a more intense teal. That would have been a little more, well, definitely more muted than this. And as we do this, you can see that the skin tone starts to fade into the background. I'll just keep working here. I think that was the last one there. Now we'll just go one step higher with this. Not going to add anything more to that because we want to still be able to manipulate it even further. There are differences with this paint since it does have some pretty hefty coverage. I have to always remember it's not going to work the way, say, the liner paints will, the Reaper clears. I guess the closest comparison to these is the Reaper clears when I add some of the lighter opaque colors to it. That's where it really starts to mirror what the clears do. They both dry, really matte. That's a similarity. All right. Here we go with this. Also trying to think, this shouldn't get quite the same kind of highlighting maybe as this gets, because that's just out in the open. And sometimes things are a raised surface, but it's a raised surface in a shadow area. And I can distinctly remember basically highlighting the bottom of a foot or something like that, or the top of a foot as much as, say, the top of the head. Kind of thinking, well, yeah, maybe shouldn't be quite as much light there. So this will be the last layer right here that I add. And then what I'll do is I'll break here. And we'll go into the next stage, and that's going to be maybe working more on the skin tones here, the eyes. We've done plenty of stuff on the metals and now on the clothes. So let's work on the actual just skin and faces and that sort of thing. So that will do for now. So we'll be back with putting some eyes and some teeth and some other things on these guys. Let's start to add some interest in the faces. I'm going to start off with adding a little bit of a right around where the teeth are. Get in here with some reds. And then we'll paint obviously the lighter teeth color over the top of that. Right. So let's do that on these other guys. I think one has his mouth open, the other two are closed. They're almost sort of beak type mouths. Again, I don't know the story behind these guys, if they're supposed to be more almost like, sorry, sea creatures. And again, apologize if I have to get rid of a gravelly voice. It's winter here. It's in the teens, which means the house gets really dry really fast. So we're just going to throw just some pinkish colors around there, and now we'll try and work our way in here with some lighter stuff for, say, the teeth. So here's the mixing some of the orange and yellow together. And straight away that'll make a difference. Because again, everything we've worked with so far is in the dark to middle tone range. We haven't done the highlight stuff. And that's with a purpose. That is definitely done intentionally. So let's get a little something here for the eye. Just to indicate that's where it is. We're going to go back in again with the darks to do some more with that. You can see even just the difference that makes, and that's not, you don't end up seeing that. It's not as, doesn't appear as light if we didn't have all of those darks already built into it that way. It's that whole thing of if you want to show light, you must have dark. And teeth on the other side here. And we got one more of these sitting over here. Do his teeth. Indicate where the eye is. There's some, well, I don't know if they're more fangs or what you would really call them, but they're there. And while I'm here, I'll take some of those colors and we'll work some lights into our stone weapon here. And we've got, since we have all the eye stuff going on, now let's see what happens if we start to make some lighter greens here and start to work those in. And again, not familiar with the faces on these, so I'm just going to kind of feel my way through it. Just finding some places here. There's definitely a lot of, you got kind of the wrinkly skin thing going on. And I always have, so I've got that purple sitting right there. And purple and green make it gray. And see here, we're immediately going in with some purple. Like that. Keeps that from getting too, just an endless sea of green. That would get sort of boring. I can even take my finger and use that to blend. Done that plenty of times. And let's get a little touch more of that purplish green here, and right there. That's what I needed. Needed a little more of a transition point on that. So again, I really don't know what these guys are. I just remember that these figures replaced some really old, probably metal figures several years ago. And again, finding some places to drop a few lighter tones here. And again, focusing mostly on the places where that's gonna land on it. As far as the light, and I need to get back to my, I go with a purple and green mix again over here. On that right there, that's what I needed to get a little more control over right there. And I've still got my camo green, a little touch of that blue in there, make sure it doesn't get too just green. And we can throw glazes over the top of this to either tone things down or make the highlights come out even more. Here, let's tone that down just a touch. See, you can even do almost like a little wet into wet there. So what I'm going to do is do some of this on the other figures now, because I don't want this video getting too long for you. And at this point, it's almost going to start to be a little bit repetitive. Since and there's one face where you won't be able to see it. That's the other thing too, is he's basically looking down at the ground. And it would be insane for me trying to twist that thing around so that you can see it and so that I can try and paint it. But this guy was kind of looking right up at you. It was the easiest angle to get on camera. That's why I'm just gonna kind of focus in on this one right here. See, I mean, he's looking straight down. This one's not too bad. Yeah, let that dry on him. This one does have a little bit of a different skin tone. So let's bring him out. Now he has more of a yellowish skin tone. I'm going to break out the orange again. That's over here. Mix that with the green. That's going to enhance that olive green look to it. That's for sure. Yep. But I also don't want to lose. I'm going to lose the green entirely. I'll mix a little bit of that blue in there to gray it down. Because I got plenty of purple in there. I just need some more green. But it's also, I need it to contrast with the teal. I also don't want it to become here. I need a little touch of brown in there, knock that down. Yeah, that's what we needed. Little touch of brown in there. And like I did on the other one, let's start to inject a little bit of white into there. That's more like the ivory type color. Right, like so. There we go. Again, using my finger to just tamp down on it and do a little bit of blending on the spot. Up here. Yeah, definitely there was no way that third one with the face pointing down, I was going to get that on camera. It was difficult enough even in the early phases, much less trying to do this kind of stuff on it. And as we get down into the hands, I can get a little more highlights on there. Again, trying to leave behind some of that interesting purple that we got down into there in those early stages. And you can see the difference it makes when I start to add these lighter colors in there. All of a sudden, there's just a huge amount of contrast in an area, and I have to control that. Now I could even, let's say I wanted to give them more of almost a translucent skin look or whatever. Maybe I could mix water effect in with each of these layers as I paint them on. And then each layer sort of, you can see one through the other. That is probably something I'll try and do. I think on maybe one of the creature caster demons, there's some Nurgly type demons that might work really well for that. So you can see we're getting a nice progression there on some of these skin tones, but let's not forget that we also have to, let's use some brown liner here. And let's make some, see if we can't make some eyes on these. So there's your top of the top eyelid there. Right now I just want to get some darks in there. Let's get the other one. Where is he? Here he is. Let's establish that upper lid there. Lower lid. A little bit of an eyeball there. And I'm just going to throw some glazes over that, darken that down. Same thing in some of these other spots here. Things that I now kind of look at them and say, you know, I'd rather have that be more of a reddish leather type color. Tone down some of the teeth here. I still got my purple color here. So there you go. Again, into these areas. And let's say you wanted to do some kind of spot type thing, whatever on it. Let's mix that brown liner with that camo green. And let's see if we can't create something up here. I think what I want to do is build sort of a spot pattern. Start where the spots are bigger. They're almost a little bit like building blocks here. See, I'm kind of put these here. I'm going to put one right in this junction right there, which leaves me room for another one here, which means I can put one here, put one here. But see how they get a little bit smaller as it starts to come out. Now I knew, oops, sorry. I knew that I was going to be putting these here, so that's why I wasn't really sweating a ton of blending. I don't know how many times I've done all of this blending and smooth things out, and only to find that, well, wait a second. Now I've just covered it all up. And here I'm going to, again, do some darker glazing down there just to let that go. Where are we at here? There's my green, a little bit of the brown liner. Just make sure I complete my spot pattern. I'm going to let it start to break up though, as it starts to work its way down the side of the face. So there you've got that. Let's grab our other guy and do something similar. Alright. Hopefully I can keep this all on screen for you, just like I did on the other one. You start out with the bigger ones. Work your way down. And where these things kind of intersect. Like that. Work my way across the face, getting smaller. Sometimes the gaps are a little bigger, but now that purple that's there with the green, that starts to recede in the background. It's not as noticeable. And I'm going to draw this pattern all the way out to almost where the eye is. Maybe we'll throw a little bit of that on the arm too, not as much. Might distinguish one of these guys from the next. It also helps to provide a little separation right here from your armor. Now I'm going to get some of the yellow back out here. Touch of that ivory. I have to keep remembering, twist these. It works again the same way that glue does. Just twist and press. Now these containers, they're a little on the stiff side. I think future releases, the containers are going to have a little more give to them. Where are we at? That looks like it's on camera. Just wanted to add a little more light to the eye. And hit a few of these edges of the teeth here. And I like to, on the interiors of the mouth and stuff, I like to use little of the water effect stuff just to give it some shine, slime, whatever expression you want it to be. See a few little lights on the teeth, the eye. Lately I've been doing even the water effects on the eyes themselves. Just to accentuate that a bit. And the other thing, I don't know, maybe you can tell just by watching me that these paints stay wet pretty long on the palette. This is not a wet palette or anything like that. It's just, all I'm doing is sticking these paints out onto the palette. I'm not doing anything special with them. They're not being treated with anything. I'm not even covering them up. Alright, let's grab a little of this. Let's get some of this leather type stuff going here also. Alright, like so. Hit some of my tree branch here. Yeah, just getting a little bit of highlights on the leather. Again, tree branch. Maybe a little bit on the staff here. The other one, same thing. A little there. Over here. Again, that's the one with the face that's pointing straight down. But what the heck, while we're looking at him, let's give him some of the same spots there. Only I'm going to add a little more of this brown to it. This is the lighter umber. So where you can see it, so these spots are just more like a greenish, more brown actually than green. The other ones were like a dark green. These are more just a brown. And there's more, obviously, opportunity to make these spots here just because of the way the face is pointed down. Didn't realize just how much highlighting I already had on the skin. Just like I did on the other two guys. I build off of that, work down. And so now we've got some of that. So what we'll do is let these guys dry just a bit. And what I'll do is add some highlights onto the metals there so you can see what that's going to look like. And that might be one of the last things that we do. Again, we don't want this to get too long for you. So this could potentially be a little bit harder for you to see, given that the metals are kind of shiny and it reflects on camera. But I did want to show you how it is possible to not just shade your metals darker, but also get some light metals on here. So that's basically just the yellow and the metal medium together. And let's see what we get. And that is definitely lighter. I think you can see it. Yeah. Especially when I do it right here. Yeah, on this side. You'll see how that starts to lighten things up. Especially over on this. Yeah, I definitely see it here. So right there, now I can really see it. That starts to give that a nice bright shine. Let's do it there. It's also a little bit easier to paint thin metal areas or thin lines with this, because metallic paint tends to be on the thicker side. It's a little chunkier, and this is definitely not so chunky. And if I get somewhere I don't want, I can just kind of wipe some away, do whatever. Let's get to a few little lights on this. And that's going to show up a little more there too. Now it's interesting with the metal highlights, you just almost want to be a little more sparing with those. It can be the opposite of doing, well, even with non-metallic stuff. If you go too crazy with highlights, then you have no shadows and you end up with orange or yellow colored armor instead of actual something that might look more like gold or whatever. So that seems to work out pretty well there. And let's do that here also. It's especially going to matter here. Yeah, we've got a nice dark backdrop to this, so that's gonna work out really well. It's gonna show up nice right here, like that. Here. Again, only going so far with this. Yeah, if I do too much, it's just all going to be light and there won't be any kind of shadow. Midtones, we'll lose all of it. And all the while, I'm trying to be aware of some of those undertones that I created, like here with the green versus the red. Don't want to lose that. let's get a little shine onto this. Same here. A little here. Yeah, so it's hard to get that to show up on camera, that's for sure, when you got the metallic stuff going on. Well, that is, I mean, as far as the industry goes, one of the reasons why metallics tends to be, you see that versus, or non-metallics versus metallics on, say, things like box art, is that it's a whole lot easier to photograph the non-metallic stuff. It doesn't, you don't have to worry about this kind of shine being kind of blown out by the lights hitting it. Alright, we'll just hit that with a little bit there. So I know this is kind of down and dirty and quick, but this was more to prove a few points that yes, you can paint acrylics on top of oils, and yes, you can do an acrylic or a metallic glaze. Basically, we figured that out. There's a lot of different things. Okay, that's actually a piece of leather there, so we need to change that. And that you can make these course corrections like this, or change an entire mini around without having to strip the darn thing. Every time I hear people talking about stripping figures, I just think, well, you didn't have to really do that. It wasn't necessary. As you can see, we used essentially what was there as an underpainting. And I don't know, that seemed to work out pretty well. In some ways you can still, you can't necessarily see the original color, but we stayed vaguely within the family of those original colors. Okay, we changed it to the brighter teal here, but I could play off of what was already there. Alright, so again, I know I've gone off camera a few times. It's really late here. I've already filmed several videos today. This was just, I wasn't going to film this. And then I thought, wait a second, this could be important. I've actually been waiting to film something like this, where I show acrylics over oils. So it is definitely possible. I think we easily prove that. So what I'm going to do is, finish off some of these parts here and get my foliage on there. It's not going to be anything terribly dramatic as far as the foliage goes. I just want to say thanks for watching, and I hope that this has given you some new ideas to think about. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, you can subscribe. I've got tons of other videos, all kinds of tutorials, battle reports, you name it, fantasy, bolt action. And if you want to subscribe to the Patreon page, that's just James Wappel at Patreon. And even a $5 pledge level will get you lots of videos. And you're going to go all the way up to the $15 Army Painter pledge level, which will pretty much get you everything. So thanks again. And be sure to catch me on the next video.